The loft tool is a pretty complex function, as opposed to a lot of these others. As we went through things like extrude, revolve, those are pretty basic. Take a sketch and you do a thing to it. Then we got into a sweep, and then we learned, okay, well, we need and could have multiple objects in our function here, so we needed to have a profile and a path to follow. Now with the loft, it can be quite a bit more complicated. The picture that you're seeing here in the pop-up, it's showing you a square going to a circle, and that's basically what it does, and that's kind of what I'm going to show you here right off the bat. Beyond that, it gets complicated in the amount of things that it can do between different entities. And what I'm trying to say is, rather than just have a square and a circle right here, we could have different sketches on different planes, and then you could blend between these. But how does it decide to blend, and where does these connection points get made? And that's kind of where things are going to get a lot more complicated. I have often thought of things like Loft and in CATIA's the multi-section solid as a tool that is kind of like a surface design tool for solid modeling. And if you can't quite get what you want, the Loft is kind of like your last solid modeling tool to try to get your shape that you want before you end up going into surface design. In order to get this to work, we're going to need to have some construction elements. We're going to have some planes. So click here. This is, by default, it goes to offset plane. Hit this and make another plane somewhere about there. Right now it doesn't really matter. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make a sketch on this plane, and I'll just go with a centered rectangle from here to here. Stop the sketch. Then make another one over here on this plane, and we're not going to do the square to the circle, we're just going to do a square to a square. Super simple, but will give us something to do later that's a little bit more interesting. Then if you want this to be really simple, really super simple, you come up here, hit Loft, and you say, I want to go from this to that, and there's your job done. Now, we've got a lot of other tools in here that could have accomplished that, but if that's what you wanted, this is a way you could do it. We could have done this with just a pad, and then we could have tilted it in with the kind of the control handles. We could have extruded it up and then made a draft. We could have used even a chamfer with 2 directions on it. So we got a handful of different other ways that we could make this product. But if you go here and you say direction, now how do you go about doing that? Well, yep, there's ways we could do that as well. I could come up here, I can change this to direction, and now we get this. Do you see where I'm going with this? We start with something simple, and then we have control menus, control functions to be able to alter how it works. You see that? So pick that, or I pick profile 2, and I can grab that, and I can move its tangency back and forth. So if you wanted a shape that looked like that, just a real simple example, how are you going to do that? By any other means in solid modeling. Then if you look down here further, I'm going to skip guide type for right now in Rails. You've got your takeoff weight and takeoff angle. Chain selection and close kind of won't work in this particular situation. That will be, let's save that for a different video. Your takeoff weight and your takeoff angle, it's easiest to just explain. So your takeoff weight is what we're doing right here. So when I've been grabbing this arrow, moving it, it's pushing that tangency, if you will, out further. Then if you want to modify your takeoff angle, there's your handle right here. So you grab this, and it's the angle at which it leaves the profile, you see? So if I go this way, back and forth, I should be able to get it, you see? to kind of do some pretty serious warping out. It's kind of weird how it chooses to do that though. Kind of got to work it around. And then you can click back over here and do the same for that. Now here we have almost the same situation, and the only thing that's changed is I added one more vertices to this sketch right here. So we'll go here, we'll do our basic loft again, and it works, but you might not want this computed line right here. Do you see how it decided to come up with that? Maybe I want this line right here to be right in the center of this, going across like that. As you create multiple different sketch profiles with varying vertices, this can become a lot more complicated. Now in this situation, watch this. Can't do this in CATIA. See that? And notice, you see where it's snapping to right there? So in this case, job done, right? That was pretty simple. Just to make the next part a little bit more noticeably different, now we have a triangle here instead of a rectangle. If we were to go ahead and loft this now, what you're going to end up getting is this. And it pretty much works okay. It works, I mean, it works fine. The problem could be, is that this rail right here and the one on the other side here, the lines, they were created, they were computed. So are they where we wanted them to be? Well, again, I mean, maybe it doesn't matter to you. If you're just going to 3D print this thing and just look at it, I guess, maybe it doesn't matter. In most situations, I want to know where that is. And again, I could take this and I could move it around and just kind of sort of get it where I think it's good. But we want to define this. So we'll go ahead and get back into the triangle sketch, and we want to add a point here. I'm just going to go ahead and click a couple on here. It would make a lot better sense to go ahead and constrain them where you want them to be. And this is where things get kind of maybe messy, because it's the way that Fusion does something by default. You've got to go to preferences to enable a certain thing. Here's what we want to do. I want to make a line that goes from this point, let's say up to that corner right there. But I can't do this. They don't have a three-dimensional line here in 3D space. What you have to do is you have to go make a sketch, but your sketch, this is weird and important. The sketch, don't think of it as any longer as a sketch plane that you put a two-dimensional object on. Think of the concept of a sketch, like over here, sketch 4, sketch 5, as a container, almost like a folder, but like a container for a certain function. This is super weird, but it works pretty good once you get used to it. So I'm going to create a sketch down here on any plane, doesn't matter, this one right here. And then I'm going to tilt it. Now I have access to my line features. So I could pick a line, and then I could say I want to connect from point to point. Except the problem is going to be that up here in preferences, you're going to want to go to design, and you're going to look for allow 3D sketching of lines and splines. This is deselected by default when you install Fusion 360. Now mine, if you watch the previous video, or actually the first video where we talk about getting everything set up so we can have a common work area, I go through a lot of this and say what to check and what not to check. I had already had this checked, but I wanted to leave it unchecked so I could show you what happens, how it looks. So if you run into this, so I'm just going to hit OK, you'll know that this is the problem, hopefully. So you come here, you grab a line, and you go around here and you try to pick something. Your first indicator that there's a problem is you can't select any points or lines anywhere on here. So then you might think, well, I need to project something possibly. So you come by here and you start picking your points. Like I want to pick this point and project. But you see what's happening is it's projecting it onto the plane that you selected or that you went onto. So that's not it. We'll go back to Preferences, go back to Design, check the box, and then hit OK. We'll go ahead and draw in those lines. Now you should be able to do just the ones that you need and let the other ones auto compute. If it's not working right, if you see any other line being created, then, well, check your sketch to make sure you don't have hidden vertices you didn't know about, or draw other lines to connect all the rest of the dots. So we'll stop the sketch, go to Loft, here to there, and now when you go to Rails, I can hit that, that'll line that one up, and then this one that's going right here, I say no, I want to use that one, and that lines that up. And then look around, like I said, look at all of your edges to make sure that they're singular and you're not seeing any other pieces in there. Then the last thing I want to do for this video is go back to our basic squares. So now that we know how to do guide rails, now that we know, the basic idea how the loft works, what I can do is I can say, well, take this, go to here, connect as normal, but what if I want to create a twist? What if I want to twist this? Well, what I really want to do then is I want to say that this point here doesn't go to that point there. I want this one to go over there, and then I want this one to go down there, etc. Okay, so of course that's going to be Rails. Let's go ahead and cancel this out then, and we'll go make a sketch. Again, make a sketch, any plane, doesn't matter. Here, pick your line tool, and now be very careful that you connect to the right one. When you're done, exit, go to Loft, here to there, and now pick your rails. There you go. So I will stop the video right here on this one. There are a lot more things to talk about having to do with the loft. Also, you'll find the loft over in Surface Design and Sculpt as well, and you got a few different parameters there. But for now, I think you got a good amount of information to get you started and start playing around with this and get comfortable before we move on into the others. And honestly, it's not really going to get much more complicated conceptually. It will get more difficult from a complexity standpoint, as in there's not just going to be 2 sketches on 2 planes. We're going to have maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different sketches on different planes with different vertices that each have to be connected in different ways with not even just single guide curves, but guide splines, a 3-dimensional spline that's going to go from one end to the other. So think things like an airfoil, like a wing, or like a propeller, right? Those are things, actually, projects that I'm working on the side. So maybe we'll come back to that later down the road. Try this, see how it goes.